Welcome and thanks for coming tonight. My name is Ryan Aston. I'm with Thousand Friends of Martinez. We're excited to have you here tonight for another one of our seasonal meetings. The topic of this one, of course, is economic development. Before we begin tonight's discussion, we're lucky to have some folks from the city of Martinez here. I wanted to take a moment to reflect on what economic development means for us. For many years, Thousand Friends of Martinez has worked with residents to promote transparent governments, to defend parks and open space, to strengthen neighborhood character, and to support thoughtful planning for the future of our city. Our goal is to help ensure that Martinez remains a livable community and one that residents can enjoy today and sustain for generations to come. We've hosted public forums on local issues. We've supported community events that bring people together around civic engagement and a shared stewardship of Martinez. Our last seasonal meeting last year covered the topic of housing, which is of course another important issue that we're facing. And at Friends Fest last year, we have some remnants, these posters up here. We celebrated the Environmental Grand Slam, which included the dedication of the Alhambra Hills open space, the naming of Barbara Woodburn Canyon, the opening of Pacheco Marsh, and the opening of Pine Meadow Park, capping off a great year for open space in our city. Tonight's topic, economic development, is closely connected to those values. Economic stability, I think, is often a challenge for municipal governments, particularly for smaller cities like Martinez. And that's partly because cities rely on a limited set of revenue sources, many of which fluctuate with various economic conditions, while at the same time being responsible for maintaining local infrastructure, essential services, and public assets. I think economic development is often discussed in very abstract terms, but its impacts are very concrete. It affects the city's ability to maintain assets like the waterfront and downtown, to respond to unexpected challenges, and to take advantage of positive opportunities when they arise. Thousand Friends' goal this evening is not to advocate for a specific project or outcome, but rather to better understand the fiscal landscape, where Martinez stands financially, what tools are available to us, and how different efforts might fit together. So with that in mind, I would like to welcome our speakers this evening from the city. We're excited to have them get up here. We're going to hear from them on a range of issues, and then at the end, we'll have some time for Q&A as well. So thank you all for being here, and I'd like to start by welcoming Mayor Brienne Zorn.
Okay, the flyer is right over there. Yes. You charge.
All right, good evening, everyone. Thank you so much for having us here. The highlight of the evening will be these wonderful women here, but I get to start the show. So thank you very much for giving me a few minutes. I forgot to set the timer, Seth. I'm so sorry. We'll just have to do it. Yeah, thank you. Seth always gives me a hard time because I talk too long, and I told him, give me a 3-minute timer, I can get it done. So the thing I'm going to be talking about tonight is the strategic plan. And the reason this is important is that the city of Martinez has had plans for years. We've always said we had, strategies, we had plans, we were talking about things we wanted to get done, but rarely did we put together something that was a strategic 4-year plans. It's a big deal because what it means is it allows us to get that list together of all the things that we care about, all the things that we want to get done, and then we prioritize it and put it in a calendar. So if we're all in agreement, we want to do something, but we can't all get it all done in year 1. We come to an agreement as staff, we come to an agreement as council, and we say, this is for year 1, this is for year 2, this is for year 3. And we can always use it as a living document, come back to it, make changes as we see fit, but it aligns all of us so we're all headed in the same direction, which I think we can all agree was a lot harder before we had a document, which is this document in our hand to point to. Which I just said. So as part of the 4-year strategic plan, we also came up with updated vision, mission, and values. So I wanted to talk through these just a little bit because if I can give a shout out to Sitinder Mali, our current vice mayor, who is sitting in the audience with us today, he knows that we put a lot of thought and effort into this because there's a lot of these words, right? They have meaning and they haven't been updated in a long time. So the vision for Martinez that we all agreed to as a staff, through a bunch of public meetings and ultimately by the council is where we want to aspire to be. So Martinez aspires to be a vibrant, welcoming, and sustainable small town, honoring our past and embracing innovation and building a thriving economy. And our council made sure that we included that phrase, honoring our past, because the past is what made Martinez such a wonderful place that it is today. And we had a consultant that was providing us guidance who said, normally people don't talk about the past in a vision. And we said, no, it's important to us, it's us. And so we made sure we kept it in there. So it is our vision, but we want to be honoring our past as we move forward. Our mission is what staff do to implement that vision at City Hall every day. So our mission is to provide responsive and reliable public services that cultivate a resilient and welcoming community where individuals and organizations thrive. So whether it's a nonprofit group or a business downtown, we want everyone to be thriving. I also really advocated for this word resilient. It's important for us as a city to be identifying ways that we can diversify our investments, no worries. We can diversify what we're doing so that way, not that we never have bad things happen to the city, but that we can roll with the punches and that we have the skills and the forethought to ride it out and still come out successful. The values are also a few new exciting words. Integrity, that has always been one of our values. Transparency and open communication, we have been working on that. Transparency for all the time that I've been on council. Fiscal sustainability. Modernization, which was a really big one because several of the tools that we were using at City Hall were outdated. They weren't making staff's job easier. I always use the example that when COVID started, we didn't have voice over IP at City Hall, so no one could do their jobs from home. They literally couldn't answer telephone calls from home, even though so many offices could, right? That's a big deal. We've modernized, we can do that now. And so that's one of the goals for our values that we hope to implement in every department. And then lastly, empathy and respect for diversity. And many of you probably know that we have started our new commission, our Diversity and Cultural Commission, and they were officially sworn in last year. So just a quick overview. Am I way past my minutes already? How many minutes?
You're at 4 minutes on this.
One more, okay. So our goals that you see up here are financial sustainability, vibrant and sustainable waterfront and marina, which we'll be talking about more. Thank you, Lauren. Economic development and housing, which Jill will, I'm sure, touch on at least a little bit. Capital projects and infrastructure improvements, and community health, safety, and well-being. And these city goals are not necessarily the same ones that we've had year in and year out. Some of these are new and different. And community health, safety, and well-being is one of those. And I was really excited to be able to put that on because it ensures that we have codified our interest in making our community welcoming, protecting their health and safety, making Martinez a better place to live. And the last one that I wanted to kind of call out, what happened to the?
Oh, I put it out in the, to start.
Here, I'll try one more, hold on. I set it down and it disappeared. The one thing that I wanted to make everyone aware of, so this is what our strategic plan looks like. And so on every page associated with each one of the goals that I just listed, there are strategies that we have put together, as well as the calendar that I mentioned, right? On when we're anticipating implementing those particular strategies to meet that goal. In some cases, you'll see the strategy should be implemented every year. And in some cases, you'll see that the strategy is implemented in year 3 or year 4. One of the city goals that was really important to us was capital projects and infrastructure improvements. We always have approved our capital projects list every single year, but this is the first year it's actually been on our city goals because the city council thinks this is really important. But an example of something that doesn't show up in year 1 are improvements to our senior center. So we have funded major improvements to our senior center, but that doesn't show up until year 3. So we know it's coming down the line, but we're prioritizing a few other things right now, knowing that that will be funded in the future. So I encourage you, now that you have kind of heard this background, and after you hear staff speak later, I encourage you to open up the strategic plan, go to the goal that is most interesting to you, and look to see what kind of strategies we've identified, and when in the calendar the next 4 years we prioritized implementing these strategies. And I am happy to answer any questions at the end, because I think that's where we're going to do it. So I would like to introduce Lauren Sagayan to introduce our financial update. Thank you.
Okay, can everybody see me? I feel like I'm behind them. Can I move this down a little bit? I hope I don't break it. Yeah, I should have. Yeah. Okay. Thank you for having me. So for those who don't know me, I'm the assistant city manager for the city. I've been with the city 4 years now. I've worked on every city budget so far since working here. Also before June Dew, our finance director, came on, I was also filling in for her job. So I've been intricately involved with city finances here since being here, but also before in prior cities, very involved in efforts for fiscal stability, fiscal sustainability. So I have a long background in fiscal sustainability. I love talking about it. I was sharing with Harlan today, like, if you guys would like to have a cup of coffee and talk more about it, I'm totally open. It's a really important topic to educate the community on, because oftentimes we're a little scared. It's numbers, it's math, and a lot of us don't like that. But really, a budget is a statement of our values at the end of the day. But it's more than just numbers. It translates into the services that we provide, and that's where that really affects you, right? So get involved with the budget. We really encourage you, as the mayor mentioned, we really try to have a transparent process. We come every 6 months to the council, whether it's to check in on our fiscal year budget or to prepare for the next one. And we're keeping a close tab on all things city finances right now. One thing I do want to note, the mayor brought up the strategic plan. So in the strategic plan, we have a goal around fiscal sustainability. It's the first goal in the plan. It's because really the plan is based on fiscal reality, right? So everything in the plan is achievable because we did the math to make sure any item that ended up in the plan, it was something within our fiscal reality or grasp. Also, it was very important that we develop a lot of strategies to help us make sure that now in the short term and in the long term that we are, trying to prepare to optimize the city's financial health now and long into the future. Some quick notes I want to make about this. Since the mayor and the city council, this mayor and this city council have been in place, they have been very diligent about keeping costs down. So I was just telling somebody today, the mayor and the council hold us accountable. When we bring financial information to them, they really question it. And they really they question norms, right? Like, just because we've already been doing something doesn't mean we have to keep doing it. So that's been very helpful in having us keep our costs down and really question new costs coming in. We also have a new finance director who just came on a couple of years ago. And myself and June have been very focused on disciplined long-term planning. So for the first time, I think the first time in the city's history, at least from as far back as I could go, we're doing a 5 and a 10-year forecast. We weren't doing that before. So we would make commitments to, say, build a new park, but we didn't really understand what's the 5 and 10-year impact of that, because everything has a shelf life, right? Or just understanding, if we're going to add a new park, do we have staff that can maintain the park? These are just things that weren't built into the city fiscal planning process before. And now June and I are really helping to bring that conversation to the forefront. June has done a great job updating fiscal policies. So again, taking a look at all the best practices from how much money should we be saving, to cost control, to revenue generation, by the way, to strategic planning, because in our line of work, if you have a budget and you don't have a strategic plan, that's a problem, right? So we've been really focused on updating fiscal policies, putting plans in place. And one thing that we're very excited about is, since June's been on, is improving our interest income earnings. So the city's money doesn't just sit. We do invest it so that we can get return on those investments. And June's been very diligent about helping us make sure that we're optimizing those interest income earnings. So let's talk big picture. I'm going to first go through expense, then revenue, and then savings. Our main cost, so where we stand today, this fiscal year, okay, we do have challenges that we're managing and challenges into the future. Our main cost drivers are insurance, healthcare, salaries, and pension costs. These costs rise each year faster than revenue is rising. So revenue is tending to be pretty slow in terms of growth or stagnant, while costs are just skyrocketing. And again, if you know in your own household, this is something we're all feeling. It's no different at City Hall. Salaries, for example, we do have a number of unions within the city that we have negotiated cost of living adjustments with. We do have labor contracts that are up in the next couple of years that we'll be having those tough conversations with. Also, it's a general city policy that we want to strive for all city employees to be in the median of the market. So we know we can't, be the gold standard and pay above market, but we always try to keep employees at the median. And I say that because it's important for you to know, because salaries are the biggest cost of the city, right? We provide a service to you. We don't make a product, we provide a service. So therefore, people are the highest cost of the city. Our pension liability continues to be a significant cost that raises every year. We're right now on a 5-year ramp-up period that started this fiscal year. So over the next 5 years, our pension payments our annual pension payment will increase by 34%. And this is due to the CalPERS amortization schedule. So it's something that's out of our control. That cost right now, just to give you an example, we paid $4.2 million. That's the payment we made this year. So again, that's a cost that next year we're going to be looking at increases. Retiree health benefits, those continue to go up every year as well. Those are a little over $1 million. Also, the city's share for healthcare costs for current employees. So the employees pay a share, we pay a share, but those costs continue to go up. And so generally speaking, labor and pension is becoming a more sizable cost each year, and we have to manage that. Insurance, if my city manager was here, he would love this conversation because he's been the city's risk manager for the past, some odd 10, 20 years. But of course, we all know insurance across the board is going up. Our general liability insurance is the category that particularly is going up the most. We just paid $2.5 million this year for insurance. Something to kind of understand is we're in a risk pool with a bunch of other cities. And so when another city has a big problem, like a police officer involved shooting or something else that's catastrophic, it affects the whole pool. So that's, these are just things, unfortunately, that are out of our control. But what we can control with insurance is our own risk, right? So we can work hard to make sure employees are doing their job safely, right? We can work hard to make sure cracks in the cement aren't a serious hazard for the public. Like, those are things we can do to control insurance costs. On the revenue side, so taxes make up over 80% of general fund revenue, right? So property tax, sales tax, hotel occupancy tax, that makes up 80% of the general fund. The rest comes from interest income, as I mentioned earlier, and cannabis revenues, and then fees as well. So we do charge, based on a service that we're providing, like safe recreation or the senior center. Generally speaking, there's a fee, and we don't recover all the costs, but we help to supplement the gap, right? That's missing. Sales tax, the health of sales tax depends on the economy. And just to give you kind of an understanding of the trend, sales tax revenue has remained flat the last 3 years. So very, very little growth. Currently, it's below 2023 levels. And even June and I and Jill just sat on a sales tax meeting for this fiscal year, because we have a quarterly meeting with an independent consultant that provides our sales tax information. And even this year, unfortunately, we project it conservatively, but it's continuing to come down low. So that's unfortunate. And that means just we have to make trade-offs everywhere else. The mayor talked earlier about diversifying our tax base. That's absolutely a focus that I think is important from an economic development standpoint, not just with sale tax, but hotels. That's an opportunity, being able to increase our transit occupancy tax, more retail and more business to business are ideal sectors to promote within the community. Jobs, bringing businesses in that don't have, 5 employees, but that have 100 is better for our tax base because those 100 employees are going to leave that job and spend money within the city, right? They're going to get gas. They're going to go out to lunch. So we're always looking for, I think Jill mentions this, the terminology she uses is tax generating businesses. It's not just about a business that is selling something and that generates sales tax. It's all the other things too. More people in our community equals more money, right? And more diversification. One of the things we'll be having a conversation with the council in spring that will dig more into this, but sometimes we tend to hear economic development is the silver bullet, just go bring a Costco here. And I have been doing this a long time in other cities, and the hard reality is, it's a path. It's something we have to pursue in conjunction with other fiscal stabilization measures. So just one quick analysis we put together for tonight. If we had a $3 million gap, right, in the city, a $3 million deficit, and we wanted to bring a Costco in to maybe help solve that problem, you would need almost 2.5 Costcos, right, just to make up that gap. And then you better hope that Costco doesn't close, right? So it's just kind of to give you some perspective, like adding one business doesn't always solve the problem, but certainly it's helpful. I want to note Jill has some handouts. Maybe Jill, when you get up, you can cover that. Okay. The last thing I'm going to cover here, property tax, it's actually doing fine. We budget modest growth every year, about 4% growth. That's been performing well. Fees, I mentioned earlier, a huge part of our cost recovery. Right now we're looking, I would say the most problematic is our recreation fees. The general fund subsidizes recreation services at about 70%. So that, like, for example, the pool is a good example of that. The general fund, we don't, like in all the daily admissions and things, things that people pay for, a swim lesson, lap swim, things like that. It doesn't make enough money to actually pay for what the pool costs. So that's kind of, when I say cost recovery, that's what I mean. So those are areas we're always focused in. Savings account, this is actually good news here. We're doing really well on our savings account. So our policy is to have a 20% of operating of general fund in the bank account plus 5 million. So this city council went above and beyond the standard 20%, which is common in cities, and they wanted to put another 5 million aside. So we are meeting those obligations, and that's really good news. We just don't want to get to a place where we start dipping below. That's always the goal. So regarding, one thing I do want to know, because Harlan had mentioned earlier, hey, are other cities dealing with these challenges? And yes, they are. I took a quick look at the National League of California Cities, which is an association that the mayor and the council and the staff are part of. It's a professional network. They just released an article in the beginning of the year that said 45% of municipal finance officers in the country reported feeling optimism about meeting their jurisdiction's financial needs in the next fiscal year. So 40, that's not even half, right? And that number is down from the prior year. What it said is cities right now are in a position to shift from recovery, which was the COVID recovery, to restraint. We really have to be careful. Cities are seeing a 7.5% increase in general fund spending. That's kind of a general number. So spending's going up, but revenues are staying low. So all the story I'm telling you right now, generally across the country, that's what we're seeing. And by the way, Seth, am I okay on time?
I don't actually know how much time you're supposed to have, so I was checking.
Okay, I thought you
But
made a problem.
you're at 14 minutes.
Yeah, I have a few, I have actually like the most slides of all the, I have like 10 slides, I'm sorry.
So you're at 14 and a half minutes.
Okay, so we'll go quick. So this is just a quick snapshot of general fund revenues and expenses. It pretty much mirrors what I just went through, where on the expense side, you can see how most of it is personnel. And then on the revenue side, you can see how most of our revenue is coming from taxes. This is a fun graphic. This is our property tax. A lot of folks don't realize that we don't get the full property tax money. So for every dollar we get about 15 or 16 cents, right? So all the other governments get, another slice of it. So that 15 cents is what pays for your core city services. And so now I'm going to, this is going to transition into Jill soon. So I'm going to transition the finance piece to the Marina, because that's the thing that's making the general fund most fragile at this point. How should the Marina Enterprise Fund operate, right? Ideally, it should operate like a standalone business. Charge users directly for services. So essentially, whatever the cost of the service is down at the Marina, that's what the users are paying. An enterprise fund should make money and it should recover all costs. Also, enterprise funds should be separate from the city or the general fund. I say this because that's not how it currently is, right? So this is why it's a problem. How is our Marina Fund doing? So June just closed the books, and she's going to be bringing the audit for fiscal year 24-25 to the council next Wednesday night. So what she has identified is that there's just over $1 million in accumulating losses since 2013. And in addition to almost a $500,000 loan from the general fund. This was again fiscal year 24-25. This fiscal year, just to keep the status quo, it's another $560,000 loan from the general fund that we budgeted. We haven't completely transferred it over. We're in the middle of the fiscal year still, and I'll go over what those costs are in a second. And then going into the future, we're anticipating $650,000. And this is if we don't do anything, right? This is just to maintain status quo. What does that consist of? Water and electric. So utilities, the city covers all, even for the lessees, and for the most part, we do charge utilities. Our utilities are charged for people who the liveaboards, but for the most part, we're paying the full cost. Common area repair and maintenance, so that's all the work that Public Works tries to do down there. The state loan payment, we currently owe $1.7 million left in our loan to the state. We pay $175,000 annually. The current Marina operator F3, which we've heard great reviews about, and they're doing excellent work, but it comes at a cost. So their cost is $375,000 a year. And then lastly, we have lessees down there, Eagle Marine, Yacht Club, Sea Scouts. We do get a collective of $66,000 in rental income from them. However, the city pays for their insurance, which kind of is a wash. And the buildings are completely aging and falling apart. I'm sure you've all noticed. And we just they don't have funds. We don't have funds to actually repair those facilities. I'm going to really quickly breeze through this. I know it was important in our conversation with Harlan, but this is the 10-year forecast that we did, that we implemented last year. This is with the Marina subsidy. Essentially what this shows is that, if we continue the status quo, we're going to be making difficult decisions, either in reducing the budget, another $1.2 million. And when I say reducing, that's not one-time costs. That's like recurring costs. So, those are positions and things like that, right? Or we need to figure out how to make $1.2 million in recurring revenue. So we've got to have, but either or, we got to have strategies there. If you take the Marina subsidy out, this will go out to everybody after, but this just shows it doesn't fix it, but it definitely extends the life of the problem. Takes us out a couple years before having to make difficult decisions. But it doesn't entirely get rid of the city's structural deficit, but it helps. I'll turn it over to Jill now, and thank you. I'm so sorry about going long.
You did great.
Hello, so for those who don't know me, my name is Jill Bergman. I'm the Community and Economic Development Director with the City of Martinez. I oversee 6 divisions, which are important, but they're all integrated because they really also contribute to economic development activities. So planning, building, code enforcement, sustainability, economic development, and I also oversee the marine and waterfront activity. So, coming on, one of the things that excited me about coming into this position was and how it was structured in terms of the departments that would be overseen. So it allows opportunity to look at different ways in which we can help and streamline processes. So when you think of economic development, there's a lot of things you can think about. I mean, Lauren talked a little bit about the finances and so forth, but there's a lot of components to it. Today we're kind of talking about the marina, but you have, it can mean anything from just, our housing, our parks, our commercial, how we create cities, how they operate and function to be able to feed and be, help for a healthy economy. So all of those things are critical. We have to have a really good balance, and every city does it differently when it comes to their general plan. So for my role, and but Lauren had mentioned, it's about what do we look at in terms of revenue generators, getting the right businesses here, making it more activated, creating more area opportunities for for people to come and gather and enjoy our community. So that's one of the main roles, and that again, like I mentioned, feeds into with building, for example. To me, it's super critical to get someone in and out of the door when it comes to a building permit for commercial, because they're already signed their lease and they're paying rent. So the faster you get them over, the easier it is for them to be able to try and succeed. I don't want anything that's going to delay. So those are part of the things that we do that when we look at it from a collective balance of how. As a city, we can be more efficient in helping our businesses that want to come and relocate here, as well as the community who lives here enjoying the assets that we have. So today, I'm going to talk, Lauren talked a little bit about all the financials. So as we kind of go into the marina revitalization, I want to talk about the public-private partnership that the council just initially authorized us to begin. And so January is kind of our running point of we're off and running in terms of the community outreach and where we're going to go with this project. And we hope that you guys participate along the way. One of the things I wanted to start off with and share is, why does this matter? As you know, if you're with being a resident here, the marine and waterfront revitalization has really been a long-standing goal for the council and the community, and not just this council, but prior councils. It's something that this is a beautiful asset, and they wanted to see continue to be able to thrive. However, part of what we have a lot of things to combat, and that mainly is the existing challenges that are there. When it talks about the infrastructure deterioration, the marina itself was built in the 1960s, and it was built with wood docks, which typically have about a 30-year life cycle, but you can continue that on with good maintenance. Well, we're at, year 60 plus. So it really is the infrastructure itself is really rapidly deteriorating and outpacing our ability to be able to maintain it. So a lot of what we're doing is keeping it going the best we can right now. Which also creates some safety concerns that we're constantly addressing, and that's what F3's responsibility is, to really kind of look at that. Given sea level rise and a lot of changes in the infrastructure, we have lots of frequent flooding. King tides are the biggest one that challenges us. And as you know, when you're out there in the parking lots, that's something that, again, requires a lot of infrastructure improvements to be able to get that out of the flooding zone. Lauren mentioned everything about the financial strain, about the marina itself. And so how do we get to a point of being able to look at how we can be bringing revenue in on that? And then one of the things that I know I'm often, a lot of people aren't aware of is that particular land was never really fully owned by the city. It is state land, and it was actually granted to the city through a Senate bill, and Senate Bill 1424. With that comes conditions of what we're responsible and what our obligations are to maintain that land. And the primary one is being able to, it's entrusted land. They have specific uses and what you can do. Really, it's the number one goal is how do you provide public access and amenities and things that get the public there to be able to actually enjoy and appreciate the water and appreciate the land. And that's the main driver. And those activities can be recreation, commercial amenities, looking at environmental stewardship about like with the East Bay Regional Parks and the passive area that they maintain. All of it is really central to how state lands really function and the expectations that are placed on the city. So it's important to note that because sometimes people say, let's just walk away from it and so forth. And it's like, currently we have that obligation. While that could be a possibility, when you have that type of a gift for a community, you want to really look at it and say, what is the best type of use you can do to be able to create amenities for the community, not only for now, but for the future beyond. And that's one of the things that we're doing as we look at this, because we want people to be able to get out there and it's not flooding. They can actually reach to the water and they can enjoy the trails and do activities and events and just really embrace that. And it's not only just Martinez residents, but all Californians or people who are visiting. I mean, that's part again of the initiative with the state lands is getting people to the water and making it public access. So some of the things that happened, just to bring you up to speed as to where we got to, where we're at with the exclusive negotiating agreement with Tucker Sadler, is we started off back in the summer of 2024. There's a couple good things that happened and then bad things. But one of the great things that happened is we were already in the process of doing a trust lands plan and kind of moving forward. That is a requirement by state lands. So that was something that the city initiative the city was doing. And really about creating that trust plan about what the vision could potentially be. It really was a great guiding document. A lot of times when you can look at larger plans and policy level plans, they're great starting points. They're meant to be amended and flexible depending on what's happening in the future. It can be a general plan, specific plan, anything like that. And so when the state lands, they approved the document in June, which was great, but really it did identify the need for a public-private partnership. What was included in that particular plan was not something that the city could do through grants alone or through any general fund contributions. Additionally, at that time, Almar Management, who was a longstanding marina operator for 20 years, they were bought out and ended up, the new company ended up wanting to get out of the contract for that, which is very common in those types of situations. And so they really parted ways with the city. And what that allowed for me is I had to become a harbor master relatively quick and learn how to run a marina. Even though I grew up on water my whole life and so forth, it was a job that after I was done, I was like, yeah, I don't want to do this again. I want to just be on the boat and go out. But what it really did was it allowed us to get kind of that full-fledged look on that. So this really led into the fall of us searching for a new operator, and part of those conversations, because we also had this plan in place, it also allowed us to even extend those conversations that were really quite organic about trying to find someone just to come over and occupy or to help us with managing the marina. But many of them saw it as a liability given its current condition. So when you're looking at, when they're coming over, it's like with anyone that wants to property manage, they're like, I don't know, but and so the conversation turned to, all right, well, would this be something that you might consider when it comes to redevelopment? And a lot of that conversation, with several marina operators that are around the United States, really came back to there's so many things that are happening out there with the deterioration, like the seawall and the siltation and the breakwater that need to be repaired. That in addition to putting in a new marina, it just completely cost prohibitive, and they wouldn't be able to make it work. Additionally, they wouldn't be able to make it work to even have an economic return without something on the land side. So there's no point in building a marina if you have an area that floods. You really have to do it, strategically. You have to really look at like what makes sense and how we do this, because the biggest issue besides just the walls themselves and the dredging is the infrastructure and making sure that's all improved as well. So we were able to successfully get F3 Marina, who also manages the Vallejo Marina as well, to come on as our partner right now in the interim while we kind of continue some conversations. And really, as part of that conversations we had with the marina operators, we were introduced to Safe Harbor Marina. And they are kind of the creme de la creme, if you will, of marina operators within the United States. And they really took a full look at the marina itself to see if it was something they could do. And like I had mentioned, they came back with a pro forma and just said, we just can't make it pencil with just the water side alone. But they have had other opportunities in which they partnered with a developer to be able to do a combination in different parts of the United States. And so they kind of invited us to meet Tucker Sadler. And that's kind of how we, came into the relationship of having that conversation with Tucker Sadler about like, all right, if we did something, not only the marina, but something on the water, what would it look like? What would be something that would pencil, that would be able to do all the things that that you're required to do through the Senate bill and the trust land, but then creating this amazing amenities for our community. So at that time, once they came back with the plan, we did go forward to the council, and that was in June or July when the council decided to open up the ENA to kind of have those conversations and see if we could get to a point of being able to go into a good faith agreement together. So in December, like I had mentioned on the 17th, that's when the council did enter into the exclusive negotiating agreement for the land. And one of the things I'll point out in a second is kind of the area itself. But before that, I'll talk about like really what is an ENA. So when you think of an ENA, it's important to know that it really just grants the developer the exclusive rights to negotiate with the city for a certain amount of time. And in this case, it's 24 months is the exclusive amount of time. This is us saying, we're not going to go talk to other people behind your back or see, if there's something else. We're going to give you that good faith to bring your partners together, your financing, do all your due diligence, and see if both of us can go forward. It's not a final deal. It's an opportunity that throughout this whole time frame within the next 18, 24 months, the city or the developer can choose to pull out. I mean, this is, it's one thing that we don't know what's going to happen because there's so many documents that have to be prepared when it comes to the environmental. And then there's also critical things that we need as well for the community that need to be assessed and analyzed. So it's just the beginning steps of where we're at right now. And exploring whether this is feasible. And some of the things that the ENA includes really are, it establishes the roles and responsibilities and the deliverables and the timeline. So it really says, all right, here's all the things you're going to need to do, Tucker Sadler, at these key intervals, and you need to be accountable for that. And then it also establishes the city's accountability of where we'll be as part of this negotiation, like how we'll work together in good faith to be able to kind of move forward on that. It really does require that. And then it does, include clear milestones, which are super important as well. And it also does, like I mentioned, does not obligate either party to move forward with the final project. So as we kind of start through that process now, we had our town hall or city community meetings that kind of talk a little bit about it, and we'll be doing more meetings in the future with the commissions and the public in the next few months to be able to gather feedback on the vision that's been proposed. And so I'm going to share with you the vision if you haven't already seen it. And we do have more ability to, it's on our website as well, to see more of the plans. This slide, one of the reasons why I wanted to show this slide is it gives you an idea of the waterfront itself. So in the yellow boundaries, that really is the regional shoreline boundaries. All the area that's within the yellow is, if that's trust land for East Bay Regional Parks District. We rent for like DiMaggio Fields and Waterfront Park. Those are things that we lease actually from East Bay Regional Parks. And then the area in red, which is mainly the parking lots and then the water itself, it's a compromise of about 70 acres. And that is what's in the trust land use plan for the area that would be for the revitalization. This shows you just a site plan view of that, and you kind of see the same borders of where the marina area is, and then some of the amenities. One of the ways in which this was planned carefully was to, instead of having parking lot above, let's have it below. So there's parking lot below the amphitheater and the hotels in here. So I won't go in detail with this, but if you go onto our website, you can carefully go through the plan set itself and kind of just dive into it a little bit more about that. So this is the kind of the initial vision. I'm going to show here this is the parking lot area, and then you can see all the area around it with the East Bay Regional Park District. Again, why this is important is we've been hearing a lot about people having concerns about the other areas around waterfront, the waterfront itself that they feel might be part of the development. And it really is home to a specific area. And right now it's the parking lot area that's here. So this is kind of where it rests into that. So this kind of gives you a little bit of a visual. And if you have your phone, you can always scan the little QR code to stay informed, but that'll also take you to the website for this project, which we're going to be updating and having like all of our milestone meetings and where we're at progress-wise, because we really want to make sure we're keeping the community extremely informed about this. But again, this shows the vision. And the council has provided direction that, you know, as we kind of move forward into this phase of the public output or the public outreach phase, we want to make sure we have an opportunity to collect all types of feedback on the current vision before the plans are refined, and really a lot of money spent to develop the plans that address the comments and the input that's been received throughout the public process. I'm trying to think if there's something else.
I think that's really funny just to read set with the icons.
Yeah. Okay. Oh, why?
Just why we know nothing.
Oh, okay. So, as part of even the trust land plan currently, the area that kind of goes out to the side here on the outside area, that side of the pond, that is included in the initial trust plan. It actually had activity and it had RV parking and some different things there. When we talked with the developer initially, we wanted them to kind of maintain everything within this particular envelope on purpose. And why that is should, you know, as we go through this public process and we get a lot of feedback about, oh, everything's too close or this or, you know, what, you know, can we provide more space? Can we have more access or just different things might shift around? It allows a little bit of flexibility so that there might be, you know, an opportunity that some of the things get moved a little. They might cross that one line a little teeny bit, but we don't know. Again, it allows for a little bit more flexibility in the plan itself. But the majority of that, in addition to the other side, a part of this, as part of the environmental, there'll be an effort to be able to restore these ponds and restore this into a wetland restoration. And so that's something that will come out through the environmental as well. Because it was the ones that you're seeing right now that's full, it's like a dredging pond, and then the one behind it to the left, it was also a dredging pond too. And so it's kind of like looking at it as an opportunity, like how do you now, you know, rework that so it can become a natural habitat area in the future. So that's something. So
and mitigation for the project.
Absolutely, yeah. So yeah, so that's kind of I'll stop there, and then we kind of go into kind of questions and answers. The one thing Lauren was mentioning initially with some of the documents we had, I know Harlan initially sent us an email that had all kinds of things that probably I would have been here 8 hours telling you about when it came to economic development, but I wanted to be able to leave you with some of the things that we use and the tools that we use when it comes to like our revenue and forecasting. So we just recently got our third quarter sales tax numbers. This is really the California forecast as well as kind of a snapshot for Martinez. These are all the non-confidential pages that really just give you an update of like our major sectors by categories, our top producers. And then this one really talks about a lot of some of the legislation and what the trends are. Because a lot of this starts at the state level, goes to the county level, and then comes down to the city. And it's interesting to see that a lot of times all three are either aligning or they're a little bit off, or in some cases we could be potentially doing better in one area versus maybe what the state is. So it's a good snapshot in time for the third quarter. Unfortunately, we don't get our data fast enough to be able to like have quarter data. Everything is like several months ahead. So this is the third quarter from July to September on that. So that's over here. And I also, the presentation itself, so you can take that with you. And it has a QR code too, so you can scan it when you get home to be able to look at that. And then the other thing, this document was created when I started back in 2024, and it was important for me to create this because, you know, one of the main things when you're going out and talking to businesses and trying to get people to come to the community, you need to have your marketing piece or something that basically tells them about the community because that's what they want to know. Like, what is it? So we ended up doing a market analysis, which is a larger document, which is on this QR code that you can scan. But this was kind of the brochure that ended up being the piece that we use when we go out and talk to businesses. Like, for example, I go to the International Council for Shopping Centers conference every March. That's an opportunity where we take a lot of our project sites. Like Ross was an example of one of the businesses we were able to kind of attract. We look at some of the ones that are vacant and we go down there, talk through our assets and who we are. And one of the things that Harlan had asked for and mentioned was on the second to last page is retail leakage. And it's really called retail opportunities. This is kind of every city has the ability.
That'd be 20 minutes, Joe.
Okay, 4 seconds more. Every city has the ability to kind of look at opportunities and what they're missing and what their gaps are. And that's the type of businesses that we end up going out and trying to find. So please feel free to take these on your guys' way out. Please.
I want to thank all of our speakers for coming tonight, for staying. I think we have some time for Q&A if anybody has specific questions. And Mark, I think I can probably undo this mic and walk it over, right?
Yeah.
Without doing too much damage. Okay.
Can you invite Satindra to come up with us?
Yeah, Satindra, please come on up. Yeah, absolutely.
There's a chair right over there.
Yeah, of course. Does anyone have any questions?
Yeah, I kind of have a little bit of a statement and a question, which is to let people understand. Seth Adams, I'm one of the leaders of Thousand Friends of Martinez. We've been around for 10 years. I've done a lot of electoral stuff and some land use planning stuff. And part of the reason we're not instantly negative about this is because we wanted the city to convey to the public what the challenges are financially, and that we can't just do nothing. So that's number one. Number two is for 10 years, we've been defending the area north of the tracks from residential development through the general plan process, et cetera. We've been kind of silent on potential for the mix of commercial and obviously recreational, but we were absolutely opposed. We're not saying anything about the 6 houses at Granger's Wharf, but we're absolutely opposed of using the canneries or the parking lots or anything like that for residential because of sunny day flooding and sea level rise and liquefaction from the soils, et cetera. We were open to other kinds of ideas. Absolutely, part of that was anything happening out there would have to improve resources through mitigation, for example, would have to include additional public access, and would also have to include incredible environmental review to make sure that we're not making mistakes in what we do out there. So we were open to this, and we've been doing 3 economic forums. One of them was about housing. One of them is about economic development to basically educate people about the city's financial problems. And then one that's coming up about parks that we're going to focus on. So I really appreciate you coming. And with all that said, the question is that in sustainable planning, generally you improve your city with many small things over time, as opposed to looking for one silver bullet that's going to solve your problems. And, so we're interested and cautious and, fascinated to watch things, and we'll be fully participating in what goes forward. But tell us about that difference between small sustainable changes and big project silver bullets.
If you will.
I'll pass it off, but I love this topic because you're exactly right. From a fiscal sustainability standpoint, in the plan, we have short-term solutions and long-term solutions, and you have to be doing both. You can't just pick one or the other. And And Seth is right that there's lots of, I like to say, little things that you need to be doing and demonstrating to the public, that, you know, from a smart governance standpoint. So it's like turning off the lights, like what you would do at your home, right? We turn the lights off, we unplug things. Like we're saving money just by not wasting money. We're identifying cost efficiencies. One of the big focuses has been on technology. So there's a little bit of upfront investment on technology maybe to bring it in, but over time, you don't need to grow your workforce, because technology is, in essence, it's doing the job for you, right? So there's a lot of that happening right now, Seth, on a daily basis. And we have a wonderful IT manager who, I was just explaining this earlier today. I mean, he took at City Hall a few years ago, 3-4 decade old IT infrastructure, tore it all the way down, rebuilt it with brand new infrastructure to support new technology. So there's things like that, you know, cost efficiencies, technology, turning off the lights, just being responsible in your cost control. I think what Jill's doing with her attending the conferences and bringing in the Rosses, right? Just, you know, one thing at a time. It doesn't, like, to what we were saying earlier, it's not the cash cow that's going to save the city's budget, but it's absolutely a lane that needs to be pursued on, and because we don't want to lose anymore. And if anything, we want to invite new businesses. The hard part is, you know, what it comes down to is there are times, and I'm again thinking of all the times I've done this in city business, when we come to the council and we're like, we need $1 million. Like, we need to cut $1 million in costs tomorrow. And so to answer your question, it does become hard, because what costs $1 million? 3 city jobs, you know, public works, police. And that's the hard part, is like, we're trying really hard, Seth, to not let it touch the workforce, because when it comes down to like, what's the big cost? It's salaries. And so that's why we're looking for, you know, large revenue solutions that can help us maintain the current workforce. So it's not the full answer, but you have to be doing both. And I don't know if Jill, you want to, or Jude, want to add anything to that?
Oh, yeah, I want to add a little.
Perfect.
I think that the
Hey,
board.
could you introduce yourself, please?
Oh, my name is Jim Du. I'm the finance director for the city. I've been with the city 1 year, 9 months, I would say. So it's pretty new. So when I first get to the city financial health is very unclear. I mean, when I assess the financial conditions, there's just so many things actually, like, for you, information is like, we can do right away to change, and some we can do in the year 2, some we can do in the long runs. So those are things where, as a fire directors, it's my responsibility to implementing those changes. The quickest turnaround, like Warren was mentioned, you know, I can change the investment policy so the city will be able to invest some more higher interest earning portfolios for the investments. So those are turned around pretty quick. It actually is right away in the year, at the end of the fiscal year, we're making $2 more million in our city's financials. So that this year, I think we're making, compared to the year 1, we're $3 million more compared to the year 1. Those are really quick turnaround. But what with her, I was saying the cost keep rising, right? So she was talking about the labor costs and how much we come for, maybe cost 3 police officers or 4 public workers. Those are the level of services. You know, that's why what she meant, we don't want to touch the labor force, because those are people provide the service and provide the safeties to the residents of the Martinez. So those are, we try to keep. It's not like we don't want to keep those employees. It is a level of services what we receive. That's what I want to address. I don't know.
And quite frankly, are the workforces. They're the ones that kind of keep everything going. So it's super important. But, back to kind of that question about like levels of how you approach it in terms of making it sustainable. Lauren's right. We all do little things to be able to move the needle. And sometimes there's bigger things that come in every jurisdiction. It's whether or not like, a developer wants to come in and build on a particular site, and then you have to focus your effort there, and it gives you a bigger win. In this case, we've been very fortunate as part of this process to have something that could create a very large win. But then when you think about it, you have to be very responsible about it, because it is something that we don't have the resources in-house to be able to manage this. So through this process, we're being very strategic. We're interviewing consultants that are going to be helping us with managing it and managing, being the city's liaison or representative for Tucker Sadler. So when it comes like Tucker Sadler's going out and doing the environmental, doing everything, we have peer review. We have everything coming back with peer review. We have ways in which we'll be kind of through this process going together. But what happens by us being able to get a project team on board, it allows all of us that are currently here to still do our jobs as well. So we're not getting ourselves into all of us taking on that responsibility and then other things don't happen. So it's being very strategic about it. It also allows for a different perspective and a good checks and balance as we go through this process to be able to make sure that we're staying on track and being able to do things right. And if we're able and lucky to be able to have an ability of a lot of things that were in the plan, because typically when you do a plan like this, cities plan it for 20 plus years because they don't know how they're going to pay for it. They don't know how things are going to happen, or if they're going to get a private partnership, or they're going to get anything to help it. And this is not just the marina, this is anything like your downtown master plan or anything you're doing. So this is a very rare opportunity. It's like a unicorn when you have something, to come in and do these types of things. So that's why we're all involved and we're all being very strategic, because we definitely want it to be extremely successful for the future. And one of the things that Martinez doesn't have, we don't have land. We don't have land that we have control over to do the Costco's or to do certain things. So we have to be very thoughtful in terms of what land we have control over, or what assets are maybe underutilized within the city. Like that's why even you see the housing element, you see housing opportunity areas, because we see underutilized parcels. We look at other ones, like I continually look at like a lot of the industrial area thinking, what could we do? Could we consolidate lots and do some campus building or something like that to be able to kind of help evolve, certain areas that might be blighted. And this is something that happens in every city. So this opportunity is very rare. And we're excited about it. We're nervous. It's a lot of risk, a lot of reward. But it's something that I think it's more of like trying to be united and going forward, because we don't have a whole lot more to risk, except like this is an opportunity that we should be exploring, and the community has been kind of asking for. And so again, it's balancing on the right level, and it's not traditional or normal of doing it all at once, but we're kind of here.
Yes. I have been in town for about 40 years now, and own my home here, and it hasn't changed much. I've always been concerned about the environmental aspects of what's going on around our city, especially at the marina. And the litter and everything that's down there has really gotten to me. I've done a couple cleanups with people over the years, and I hope that that's going to be addressed, and making sure that litter situation is all cleaned up, and that new receptacles are installed that are not open to wind and animals and people. So that will be good. And then is this the proper forum to ask a question about the fireworks that we have each year, or should I direct that to email, or?
Yeah,
Can I ask a question?
Of course.
Okay, yeah, I'm very concerned about the fireworks each year. They're, I think, a public nuisance and a wildlife nuisance and a pollution factor that I don't think the city needs. I live a mile and a half up the road on the opposite side of the high school, and I'm up there behind Walgreens up on the hill on Shady Glen. And my windows rattled last year on the 4th of July, and I found dead wildlife that have been living in the backyards of people in our neighborhood that ran for their lives. There was a pregnant female deer that got hit. People are setting on fireworks all over the city, and so that kind of stuff. And I wish we didn't have those.
I appreciate those comments. Have you emailed me before?
I did.
You did. Okay, that was you. Okay. The comment sounded very similar. By all means, let's talk more offline, since I don't want to take too much of the economic development meeting, but I would be happy to speak with you more, and I can connect you to some of the city staff that work on that particular program.
Fantastic.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Yeah.
Hi, thank you for organizing this. This is really great. Honestly, for being here. I appreciate it. The Marina development, one of the concerns of the Marina development that has always concerned me is the traffic and access. How are you going to also, how are the developers deal with the train traffic, the stuck trains, and people backing up, when you're trying to get more people down into that space?
Everyone on the council has brought this up, but he is the most eloquent on this, and I know this is like your issues. I'm going to let Satinder talk about it. Yeah.
Well, thank you very much. No, it's you read my mind, and this was actually this was one of the main questions that I had for the developer. I continue to have for the developer since they first came to us. What was it, last July in public forum? I think that was one of the most pointed questions that I asked. I said, before we get down, I appreciate him and the team bringing this vision to us, but it's all secondary as far as I'm concerned until and unless he can present a viable traffic solution to help get people in and out of the site seamlessly. Just to give you a quick reference point, a few months ago, we all attended the ribbon cutting for our new fishing pier, and we had to text some of our staff who were already there. Council's going to be late because we're held up at the tracks. And, I've been down there. Sometimes it's 5 minutes, sometimes it's an hour, you just don't know. And so that is one of the questions that we are still waiting for. And I believe that as part of the analysis now that the council has entered into the exclusive negotiation agreement, the onus is on the developer to bring forward a solution to that question, if you will, to that problem, because it's something that I will be watching with very keen interest. The thing with the Tucker Sadler team is that they have a long track record of working in waterfront communities throughout California and throughout the country. And I know that they have encountered similar, let's just say, challenges on the transportation and engineering arena. So I feel I'm cautiously optimistic they will be able to bring something forward that is viable. But they know, though, that this project is not going anywhere until we get that. That has to be addressed. And I've made that as kind of one of my key points in order to, for me to consider, eventual approval of something like this. Until I see that, I'm not there. So.
My other thing, do you mind? Go ahead. So just to clarify, we all agree with what he's saying, but it's not just words, it's actually in the text of the ENA, right? So the exclusive negotiating agreement was attached to the December council meeting. So you can see the exact words, right? You can read it, and it has a list of all of the reports that are expected in order for us to approve a development agreement, which is the actual plan. So when that gets signed, it's a project. Right now, we're just talking, but the ENA specifically says what needs to be included in a plan that we will approve, and access is one of those things. So we are not going to approve a development agreement without access being considered and a solution for it. So we heard you when people like you mentioned it, when he mentioned it, and we made sure it was in the words of the document. So we didn't have to constantly remind ourselves that we were all in agreement on this. Oh, yeah, sure.
One last quick thing. I would say, and that's going to require cooperation from Union Pacific. Right. And so we've already begun those initial conversations. Sorry to get ahead. So Jill can fill you in a little bit more about how that conversation has been going so far. Take it away.
Back to the whole strategic part. Yeah, we have been calling and reaching out to a lot of the agencies that are going to have to go through this process with us to make sure we're getting in the room early and often. And we did just recently, last week, have our conversation with Union Pacific, with the developer present, and to start forging that relationship, because they need to know, hey, what are your regulations? What is your process? What do we have to do? And how can you help us? And they're actually thrilled because they see Martinez also as a huge challenge. So they're very open to like whatever we can do to help you to be able to get like either an overpass or something that's going to be your primary access, we will help you with. So that's a good thing to hear, because you don't often get a lot of partnerships with a lot of regulatory agencies that positive. So we're excited about that. And I think that also lends to, the willingness of the developer to understanding the needs of the community. I mean, all these things were stressed very early on of what's important, as well as the environmental stewardship. And one thing that I definitely appreciate is this particular architect is very much about environmental stewardship as well as environmental design. He wants to try and make this development as close to net zero as possible, as well as, looking at the opportunities of how it can balance and integrate into the East Bay Regional Park District's land, and throughout, and providing just tons of areas of open space and amenities for the public to access throughout the park that is developed itself. So those are more to come on that. Yes.
So yeah, this is actually my first time really coming to anything like this. I met Leanne earlier, and she just told me she was heading this way, and then I should come check this out because I was telling her a little bit about my background, not only in Martinez, but just in building and hospitality in general. When I heard about the agreement with Tucker Sadler, I feel like because I've worked in hospitality out here, I've grown up out here, with construction, I kind of just talked to everyone in general. I kind of heard the feedback that was kind of circulating. One of the questions that I had was when you guys were planning with Tucker Sadler, looking at the hotels, what necessarily drove the idea to lean heavily on the hotels as opposed to just housing? And is there any concern that with the hotels that we can rely heavily on outside sources as far as people traveling to Martinez as a destination and staying in hotels, as opposed to putting housing in combination with retail developments, so that you could kind of more so create regulars? Because just from working in hospitality here, I feel like the economy in Martinez is really highly dependent on regulars and people that want to come to a bar, come to a restaurant over and over and over again because they live in town, and it's just so yeah, that was kind of my question. Is just was that something that Tucker Sadler more so pushed as far as the hotel development, or is that something accumulatively from Martinez we were kind of looking at?
So when we started through this process and kind of doing that initial reach out we had talked about earlier, and kind of going to the land site development, it was definitely one of the things that was discussed. And so when Tucker Sadler put the vision together to kind of see what would pencil and what would work and the why, hotels were critical. I know when I came on to Martinez, we were almost through the trust land plan, and I was surprised there was no hotels in there, because that's something that's definitely, when you have a marina and you have all the sports fields and so forth, hospitality is critical. If you're not aware, we have 220 rooms in Martinez, where Concord has 1,500. We have a lot of leakage, everyone that's going over there. And so that's a big thing to kind of factor in. And part of, again, the ENA is doing the hotel and the economic feasibility. But they weren't going to come and present something or propose something unless it didn't work. So they did a lot of due diligence to kind of learn what was here. And what you'll see is we have the semi-professional baseball team out there. We have the bocce league, which is the largest of this, east of the Mississippi or west of the Mississippi. We have the two sports court areas.
And one of the things as part of kind of just conversations with those leaseholders is none of them can do tournaments that people can come into because there's nowhere for people to stay. So they were excited. They're like, wow, this could change our business model, which then could create activation that's going to go into downtown and eat more and create that there a little bit more and that catalyst. Other components could be, with the MRC, they bring in over 1,000 workers that are also staying in other jurisdictions. So looking at those particular demographics, as well as when you look at like part of the proposal with like the amphitheater, if you will, the hotel may have a convention center or people getting married or something like that. That's going to bring activity as well. Hosting community events for people to be able to stay. So all of those factors were kind of looked at and thought about before proposing, the hotels in the level. So it wasn't necessarily the city that came up with the idea. It was more of it was a combination of really trying to figure out what the community needs, and then being able to provide those assets to be able to really create, again, that placemaking and to be able to activate your community. Once you start creating those catalyst type opportunities, then it helps the economic development continue. Another thing right now is having an Amtrak station, that's a huge amenity. But if you don't have great places for people to get off that train, then it's like, but to get people here by train is fantastic to be able to kind of come and explore and discover, a new waterfront, as well as downtown.
Yeah. Can you cover the housing? Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you. I was like, let me add. So the number one question, the reason housing is not in the plan is because California state lands does not allow housing on trust lands. Yeah. So housing is not even a thing. Like we didn't have it and take it out. It just is not a thing. Yeah. And then I appreciate your comment about regulars. And I just want to make it clear that the way that we're thinking about this is that it's not that the people are necessarily regulars, but the processes and the reasons that people come to Martinez, that will become regular. So there's a word for it. It's called sports tourism. We don't have sports tourism in Martinez because we don't have a mechanism to house all of the people that come to play baseball games. They do have them in other cities. Her son is on a lot of touring sports teams, and they just got back from Southern California. We can't host all of the things that we could be hosting, and we're losing, I love your word, leakage. We're losing all of these revenue opportunities to other cities because we don't have anything to offer. And I think the refinery is another really good example. When you ask them, where did they stay? Walnut Creek, Concord, they're not here. We just don't get the revenue from them when we're losing all of them. And it's not just the hotels. They're also then not eating dinner here because they're staying in Walnut Creek, right? So there's potential for all of these, I guess, entities to become the regular supporters of these hotels. And then there's always, our uncles and aunts that come visit and the little bit of icing on top. That's not who we're looking at.
And traveling medical.
Oh yes, traveling medical. What was that? The word?
Yeah, that's what I was going to actually say. So we just actually did. So I sit on the economic development subcommittee of the council. And we just heard from all three of our, two of our medical sites here. Most people, sometimes it doesn't get talked about enough. We are a medical hub here in Martinez. We have 3 medical centers here, the VA, Kaiser, and the county hospital. Okay. County hospital came to us and told us they have a very ambitious plan, which is set to get underway shortly to greatly expand their current facility. Okay. And so, Kaiser is also potentially looking at some developments later on down the road. We weren't able to hear from the VA at the time because it was the government shutdown. But they too have made investments on their site. So we have visiting traveling nurses, physicians, right? We have people that are coming in to visit, their loved ones who may be in the hospital, right? People that are coming here for care. Again, it's part of the leakage, right? That's one of the leakages right now. They're not staying at the Best Western or the Motel 6. Okay, so so we didn't hear that. But yeah, so that, and I think that as part of the study that's going to be underway, so the developer now that the ENA has been approved, So the onus again is on the developer now to step forward and conduct all of the various studies, right? You think of geotechnical, environmental, market, economic feasibility, so on and so forth. I mean, this is an investment, an upfront investment with no guarantee, mind you, on their part, you know, upwards of at least minimum $500,000, I would say, if not more, right? Probably a lot more. And so that's all going to kind of come out, and we're going to scrutinize that. You bet we're going to scrutinize that, and rightfully so. So I'll pass it to Lauren, but.
And the first, we've been talking about all these documents and all these reports, and the first one that's on the list is the hotel and economic feasibility study, right? That has been our question from the beginning, because your questioning is exactly what we all said, what the whole community has said. They're like, why would anyone want to build that in Martinez? But there is an opportunity there. And when you hear us use phrases like underutilized waterfront, I've seen some posts on social media. They're like, we want to keep it underutilized. We want to keep it natural. I'm like, I'm not talking about the natural spaces. I'm talking about the underutilized parking lot that has no cars in it. You know, I'm talking about sort of like just these empty spaces that should be doing something and aren't. There's so many amazing opportunities. And I just want to like really double down on that amazing opportunity that we have, because it can't just be landside by itself, that it's dependent on the water side investment. And that's what the city of Martinez, we don't have the money to invest. And we're not talking $2 million for infrastructure improvements. We're talking tens of millions of dollars of infrastructure improvements to ensure that the waterfront portion of our marina is even maintained. And so the fact that we have someone who's interested in taking an underutilized marina like ours, underperforming, I think is probably a better phrase, an underperforming marina, and going, you know, we can make this better and we'll replace the infrastructure for you. It's a really great opportunity that they have seen in us, and I really appreciate it.
I think actually one of the things we also forgot to mention too is, like with anything, when you have a catalyst project like this or something that's really going to spur economic development in so many different ways, this particular opportunity, should everything go forward, you know, by doing a new marina and revitalizing this area, it also provides an ability for us to have be a contender for ferry service. I mean, how cool would it be to get on the ferry and go to San Francisco from here? You know, I mean, that's something where right now we're in a plan sitting on a shelf, you know, for WIDA, but we're not even a contender because we don't have the infrastructure to even, you know, allow for it. And we're yet closer than Antioch and other areas to be able to have that access and that quick access. Commercial fishing, wouldn't that be cool to go out and do your own, you know, fishing or any kind of boat ride out and so forth? It also, you know, allows for us to have, you know, the ability, maybe the Coast Guard comes or fire and have certain rescue boats and so forth in our community. So those are also some other things. But one other thing I just wanted to mention real quick, because we were talking about all the different things, like we talk about leakage or just the there and dollars and so forth. When you talk about economic development, how everything is integral. One of my favorite little stats is, you know, for every dollar spent in a community, $64 is reinvested into that community. And what that means is you're sending it not only at retailers, but your dry cleaners, your insurance, your doctor, all those types of things, because you're spending that money, which then keeps that business in business to turn around, pay for their lawyer that's in town, pay for their accountant, do all their things, their employees and so forth. So that's what they mean by every dollar spent. That's why it's so important when we say shop local and support local, is because it is the continual, you know, reinvestment, the virtuous cycle of reinvestment in a community. And so part of something like this, or anything we look at from an economic lens, is how do we improve that and increase that to really make it thriving.
We maybe have time for one more question, if there's one more question.
Yeah, there's one, right.
Okay.
How do you think that gigantic amphitheater will impact the residents that are next to it?
That's a really good question. So a couple things. It's when you say gigantic, I'll give you a little perspective. It is twice the size of the current one out there.
And we're just doing nothing.
Exactly, right. But it gives you perspective that it's not super huge. It's you know, that one out there is can almost house about 2,000. This would be, you know, a little bit more of that. So one of the projects, we had an opportunity to go down to San Diego and kind of see some of the projects that this particular architect did. One of them, if anyone's familiar with the Rady Shell in San Diego, it's a beautiful outdoor, it's where the symphony plays and so forth. We happened to be there, we were walking by, and the developer or the architect was telling us about how this was constructed and how that similar construction model and acoustical model would be brought here. And the way he described it, we were down there, and one of the bands was doing a sound check. So they were doing their sound check and it was loud, and that's like twice as loud as it would have been here. And so we're like, wow, that's, but then I had the same thing. I'm like, how do we, the noise part. And again, that's why you see it facing out towards the water in the rendering. But he said the way it was described, it is purposely, the acoustics are very intentional, so that as you kind of walk past it and walk behind it, it gets quieter and quieter and quieter and quieter until there's no sound. And we're like, yeah, right, you're right. I mean, this person, the band it was a girl band, rock band, and it was loud. So like, let's do it, let's test it. So we all walked past it, and sure enough, we started walking around the back and it kept getting quieter and quieter. We get to the back, only thing you could hear is tink, tink, tink from the drum. It was unbelievable. But it's because of how sound now and how you can design and again, the environmental sensitivity of it. Again, when you have someone that is thinking of all these things throughout all those processes, that's because that was definitely a question that was on my mind as well. So it's about how it's incorporated into the design, and we definitely firsthand saw an example of it. Oh yeah, doing stuff.
Actually, yeah.
Okay.
We need to wrap it up.
Yeah, sure. No, I just, again, just in closing then, I just want to say, yes, I was present during that visit. And so I can attest to the fact that the sound engineering on that left me very, very impressed and feeling very confident that the impact to me, as you said, to you and others in the downtown, I feel very confident that would not be an issue after having seen what was done there in San Diego. I also want to just shout out and thank Jill for putting up the rendering, which really kind of gives you the perspective in terms of what we're talking about here. I have been stopped on more than one occasion over the past couple of months here in town. People have come up to me and asked about expressing, some concerns, seeing some things that they're seeing online. And it was clear to me 5-10 minutes into the conversation that their definition of the marina was very different than what we're working here. They thought that when you think of the marina, they think that it's all that land as soon as you cross the Ferry Street crossing, as soon as you pass the hot dog shop. That's all East Bay Parkland, right when you first enter. That's not what we're talking about. So all those beautiful trails and green spaces and everything that we all enjoy, none of that is getting touched. So I want to assure the community that, and it's really important that we operate from a shared set of facts, not conjecture, not rumors. All we're asking is keep an open mind. We're going to have that conversation, and we want to hear from you. That's why we're coming to the community. That's why we're doing these listening sessions. I understand it's not always easy to get down to City Hall, so City Hall's coming to you. We have a session tomorrow night. District 2, John Muir Elementary, please come. I'm hosting one at the IBW Hall on February 12th. Please come. We have one on Alhambra High School on the 25th, I believe. Please come. These are your opportunities to come, because we want this to be a conversation with the community and not at the community. And that's really, really important. That isn't something that hasn't necessarily happened in the past with prior leadership in this community.
True.
Okay. And I want to, and that's an important distinction and a nuance that I think we want to make sure we get that, we change that dynamic. Okay. That's why we're here. And we're going to continue to be there. We're going to continue to show up. We want you to be part of this process. But this is not going to get settled on Facebook forums, folks. It's going to get settled when you come and engage with us. That's how we're going to do this together in partnership with all of you. And so that's the message that I want to leave you all with. Please come talk to us. We're not going to always agree. We can agree to disagree. We can have a civil discourse. But I hope by presenting all of this information here tonight, at least shows you that we're really trying to make a concerted effort to get ahead of a wider financial problem. And we want to take every reasonable step possible to avert a financial catastrophe. We're not there, and we hope we're not there. We are committed to doing everything that we can, but we owe it to ourselves, owe it to this community and future generations of Martesians to at least have this conversation. And so I hope you will join. So thank you.
Thank you. A couple brief closing remarks tonight, folks. I wanted to share, I think the various issues that Thousand Friends focus on all have a common theme of quality of life, right? We focus on quality of life issues. And I think that tonight's discussion really highlights how closely economic development is tied to quality of life. How decisions about businesses and land use and public investment really kind of shape the places that we care about, that we rely on every day. So thank you again to our speakers. I wanted to note lastly that we appreciate you attending and engaging with us this evening. Thousand Friends is a volunteer organization. Our members contribute their time because they care about this community. If you are interested in participating more, if you would like to donate to our cause, I would encourage you to visit the website. If you're interested in getting involved, we love to see new faces. We meet monthly. Please reach out. We do have a mailing list up here at the front. If you didn't sign up, please do so. And with that, thank you all again for coming.